Someone once bought an emotional support alligator on a credit card. Yes, the same piece of plastic you and I use for gas and groceries has been swiped for reptiles, medieval suits of armor, and weddings that ended before the honeymoon luggage arrived. If you think that's the peak of financial stupidity, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. 1. Someone once used a credit card to buy a literal island. Yes, a private island. Meanwhile, I get flagged for suspicious activity when I buy Taco Bell in 2 different zip codes. But apparently, MasterCard is cool with you casually swiping a chunk of geography. Imagine the phone call. "Sir, did you authorize the purchase of, Fiji?" And the guy just says, "Yeah, I need some space from my neighbors." Nothing says financial responsibility like treating your Visa like SimCity. Forget starter homes. Why not start with an island? The only thing missing is a surcharge for the moat. 2. In the late 2000s, a man put a $250,000 wedding on his Amex. Spoiler, the marriage lasted less than 2 years. Translation, he basically financed the world's most depressing 24-month Netflix subscription. Imagine paying interest on your ex's floral arrangements while she's Instagramming with her new boyfriend. Credit card companies don't care if your love story flops. They're just happy you bought oysters at $14 a plate for 200 people who can't even remember your name. Honestly, the most romantic part of this wedding was the vow, "Till debt do us part." And yeah, it did. 3. A guy once put $10,000 worth of Beanie Babies on his credit card. Beanie Babies. The plush toys that now sell for approximately $0 at every garage sale in America. This man basically built his own personal stock market crash inside his living room. Imagine explaining that to a debt collector. "Yeah, I don't have money, but I do have a mint-condition Princess Diana bear." Nothing like trading your financial future for a pile of polyester beans. At this point, the only thing more worthless than Beanie Babies is the hope that they'd pay for college someday. 4. Someone in Japan bought a life-sized Gundam robot on a credit card. Because nothing says responsible adult like financing a giant metal anime character instead of, I don't know, paying rent. Imagine a repo man showing up with a tow truck for your 18-foot-tall robot. The neighbors would never forget that day. Meanwhile, Americans are out here stressing over minimum payments on Apple Watches. Priorities, people. If student loans can't be canceled, maybe we should at least forgive giant mecha robot purchases. It's basically the same thing, right? At least one provides emotional support. 5. A man in California once bought a tank, an actual military tank, on a credit card. Because clearly, what you need after a rough breakup isn't therapy. It's armor-plated revenge on your neighborhood traffic circle. And the wild part? The credit card company approved it. Meanwhile, I get declined at Walmart if I buy gum and motor oil in the same transaction. But a tank? Absolutely fine. Imagine the monthly minimum payment. If you pay only $500 this month, you'll own your tank outright in the year 2076. Nothing says patriotism like putting freedom on a 19.9% APR. 6. One woman reportedly racked up thousands in debt on psychic hotline calls. That's right, she couldn't see her financial disaster coming, but she sure saw enough to keep dialing. Imagine needing a psychic to tell you that the debt collector will be showing up at your door, holding your phone records like a crystal ball. "Ma'am, I see bankruptcy in your near future." Who knew clairvoyance came with a 2-minute billing increment? Honestly, the real scam wasn't the psychics. It was the credit card company charging interest on your horoscope addiction. 7. Someone bought a one-way trip to space, financed on a credit card. Virgin Galactic literally let people reserve seats with a swipe. That's right. The same method you use to buy gas station coffee can also book you a joyride into the stratosphere. Imagine being thousands of feet above Earth, floating around, and realizing you'll still be paying for this experience when your knees give out in a retirement home. Credit card debt. The one thing that survives re-entry. At least aliens will respect you. They'll know you went broke in style. 8. A man in Florida once put $40,000 worth of lottery tickets on his credit card. Because if you're already gambling on the lottery, why not double down by gambling on debt too? This is financial Russian roulette, except every chamber has a bullet. Spoiler, he didn't win. Shocking, right? So instead of a jackpot, he got interest fees and a stern lecture from his bank. Imagine being so deep in denial that you say, "Sure, I'll pay 23% APR on my chances of becoming a billionaire." The only numbers scarier than the odds of winning were the ones on his credit card bill. 9. Someone once bought a $200,000 horse with a credit card. A horse. Not a car, not a house, a giant lawn ornament that eats. Imagine making payments on something that literally chews through your money in hay. Forget horsepower under the hood. This guy put actual horsepower on a Visa. It's like swiping for a yacht that sweats and requires constant hoof care. At that point, you're not a horse owner. You're a debt-ridden farm intern who pays interest on every gallop. 10. A college student once bought 12,000 pizzas on a stolen credit card. He wasn't running a business. He just wanted to break a record and impress his friends. The cops weren't impressed, and neither was the bank. Imagine explaining that to a judge. "Yes, Your Honor, I thought Domino's was my path to glory." That's not just financial fraud. It's indigestion on a national scale. If you ever wonder why credit card companies look at students with suspicion, it's because one of them once decided identity theft should come with pepperoni. 11. One guy bought a $30,000 engagement ring on his credit card, then got dumped before the proposal. Now he gets to make minimum payments on a diamond sitting in his sock drawer. It's like being in a haunted relationship. The ring is the ghost of love that never happened, and every interest charge is the universe laughing at you. Honestly, if the ring doesn't come with a refund, the credit card company should at least send a sympathy card. Or maybe a bottle of whiskey. 12. Someone once financed a lifetime supply of ketchup, literally hundreds of gallons, on a credit card. Because apparently, nothing says long-term investment like drowning in tomato paste. It's like preparing for the apocalypse, but only if the apocalypse involves French fries. Imagine explaining to your grandchildren, "Yeah, we don't have inheritance money, but here's a bunker of Heinz you'll never finish." At least ketchup doesn't depreciate as badly as a new car. Though, emotionally, it's still a red flag. 13. A man once bought a hot air balloon with his credit card, because clearly the best way to go into debt is floating aimlessly above strangers' backyards. Nothing says financial planning like investing in technology that was cutting edge in the 1700s. Imagine the repo man chasing your balloon across the horizon, waving foreclosure papers. Honestly, if you can afford balloon debt, just admit you were never planning to come back down to earth anyway. 14. Someone once charged a private concert by the Backstreet Boys to their credit card. Yes, instead of buying a car, they rented out a boy band whose prime was 2 decades ago. Imagine explaining to your accountant that "I want it that way" cost you a 30-year payment plan. This is peak millennial nostalgia, spending your retirement fund on the same guys you had posters of in middle school. And honestly, probably worth it, except for the part where you'll be humming the songs while filing for bankruptcy. 15. A man once used his credit card to buy a timeshare he never visited. He just forgot about it. So for years, he was basically paying interest on a vacation spot that only existed in glossy brochures. Timeshares are already the financial equivalent of quicksand, but financing one on plastic? That's like jumping into the quicksand with ankle weights. Forget paradise. His only view was the billing statement. 16. Someone once bought a coffin on a credit card. Now, this isn't inherently dumb. You might say it's practical, but paying interest on your own funeral? That's peak irony. Imagine explaining to your family, "Sorry you can't afford flowers, but at least Visa owns my casket." Death may be the great equalizer, but apparently debt gets buried with you. Somewhere, there's a collector still trying to bill a skeleton. 17. A woman once financed a $15,000 handbag on her credit card because nothing says financial freedom like paying interest on leather that'll be out of style before you finish the payments. A handbag isn't an investment. It's a really expensive pocket for your growing debt. Imagine walking into a store with a purse that costs more than a used car, but your bank account is emptier than the purse itself. At least it makes a great heirloom. You know, assuming your descendants want grandma's debt-ridden Gucci bag. 18. A man once used his credit card to buy a castle in France. Yes, a literal medieval stone fortress. Because who doesn't look at 19.9% APR and think, perfect for feudal property? Imagine the statement, minimum payment due, $5,000. Recent purchases, groceries, gas, Gothic castle with dungeon. And you know this guy wasn't defending the kingdom. He was probably just trying to impress dates. Nothing says romance like inviting someone back to your drafty fortress that doubles as a visa liability. Honestly, if you're paying compound interest on a moat, you might as well just crown yourself king of dumb. 19. Someone once swiped a credit card to cover liposuction for their dog. That's right. While some people can't afford dental care, this woman put Fido's vanity surgery on a MasterCard. The vet's office had to process a transaction that basically read one less chubby Labrador. Imagine telling a debt collector, "Yes, I defaulted, but you should see Buddy's waistline. He's thriving." Only in America could we normalize canine cosmetic surgery while humans are stuck debating whether to pay rent or buy groceries. Somewhere in heaven, dogs are laughing at us. 20. A man charged thousands for designer toilet paper, hand-printed gold leaf novelty rolls meant to elevate the bathroom experience. Meanwhile, I'm out here grateful if I can find a 12-pack on sale. This guy basically decided that wiping his backside required the same budget as a family vacation. Imagine explaining to the bank that your debt is literally flushed away every morning. It's not just a bad purchase, it's performance art on financial self-destruction. 21. A woman once maxed out 3 credit cards on a psychic-approved fertility statue. She genuinely believed this dusty carving from some roadside antique shop would help her conceive. Spoiler, it didn't. But what it did do was guarantee she conceived massive debt. Imagine paying interest for years on a wooden statue that sat in her living room like a smug reminder of poor decision-making. Honestly, the only fertile thing here was the credit card balance. It multiplied beautifully. 22. A man once bought a fully functioning submarine with a credit card. Because when you're drowning in debt, why not make it literal? He thought it would be fun for the weekends. I can't even get my bank to approve a $1,000 fridge. But apparently, if you want to finance your own Cold War cosplay, Capital One says, go nuts. Imagine the repo team trying to drag a submarine out of your backyard pool. Nothing says middle-class collapse like paying interest on torpedoes you'll never use. 23. A woman racked up over $100,000 in cosmetic surgery debt, all charged to plastic, so she could pay for new plastic. The irony writes itself. She basically became a walking credit card receipt with cheekbones. The banks didn't care. As long as she swiped, they cheered. And the kicker? Half of it had to be redone anyway. Imagine paying compound interest on a nose job correction of a correction. Somewhere, Visa's CEO is smiling wider than her surgically adjusted lips. 24. A man once bought an entire fast food franchise license on his credit card. Not the restaurant itself, just the paperwork, the right to maybe someday sell burgers. Imagine calling Visa and saying, "Yeah, I'd like to turn my 17% APR debt into a Whopper." Of course, the restaurant never opened. He basically financed a dream that expired faster than a drive-through milkshake. The only combo meal he ever got was fries, debt, and Humi. 25. Someone once used their credit card to purchase naming rights for a star. Not the Hollywood kind, the actual celestial body. So yes, some poor soul out there is making minimum payments on a glowing ball of gas 40 light-years away. Imagine handing over your hard-earned cash for a certificate that NASA immediately throws in the trash. You don't own the star. You don't control it. You can't even point it out without sounding like a drunk uncle at a barbecue. Congratulations, you financed a twinkle. 26. A man charged tens of thousands to fund his attempt at breaking the Guinness World Record for longest bungee jump. He didn't break it. He just broke his bank account. The most humiliating part? The official record holder didn't even notice his effort. Imagine having to explain to debt collectors that their money went towards strapping rubber bands to your ankles and failing spectacularly. That's not just debt. That's Darwin's Law with a billing cycle. 27. A guy once put a life-sized statue of himself on his credit card. Not marble, not bronze, fiberglass. Cheap, awkward, and haunting. He wanted it for his front lawn. Neighbors got to watch a monument to narcissism rot in the rain, while his credit card balance grew mold right alongside it. If you ever wonder what happens when vanity and debt have a baby, it's a fiberglass doppelganger that outlasts your credit score. 28. A woman used her credit card to buy a haunted doll off eBay for thousands. Not just creepy porcelain, a doll allegedly cursed. And what's scarier than paranormal energy? The interest rates. Imagine your nightly haunting isn't ghostly whispers, but the sound of collectors calling about minimum payments. It's not just a dumb purchase, it's the only horror story with a billing cycle. 29. Someone bought a giant inflatable gorilla on a credit card. Those tacky dealership decorations that flop around on rooftops. Except this wasn't for a business. This was for their backyard barbecue. Imagine owing thousands for what amounts to a giant balloon animal that terrifies children. And the best part? The gorilla popped 2 weeks later. Debt? Permanent. Gorilla. Landfill. Honestly, it's the most accurate metaphor for American finance I've ever seen. 30. A man once paid for a personal butler on a credit card. Not long-term, just a 3-month trial. Because nothing screams financial success like bankrupting yourself to have someone bring you bottled water. The bank statement must have been brutal. Groceries, $200. Butler, $15,000. Meanwhile, the butler was probably the only one laughing, getting paid to watch this guy's financial dignity collapse. 31. A woman in Las Vegas once bought a $12,000 wedding dress, swiping her credit card like it was Monopoly money. Here's the kicker. She eloped the very next week in jeans. The dress never got worn, so now it just sits in a closet like a very expensive ghost of decisions past, slowly gathering dust and interest. Nothing says romance like owing Visa for a gown your cat uses as a scratching post. 32. A man once bought the world's largest pizza on a credit card. It fed hundreds of people, most of whom he didn't even know. His reasoning? It seemed fun. Fun, yes. Financially devastating, also yes. Imagine explaining to your grandkids that their inheritance disappeared into 30 feet of pepperoni. At least the leftovers froze well. Too bad the debt didn't. 33. A couple once financed a pet tiger with a credit card, because obviously what your suburban home needs isn't a savings account, it's a carnivore. Not only did they rack up massive debt, they also had to pay even more to get rid of it when they realized their pet wasn't interested in cuddling. Credit card companies don't care if your purchase bites back. They'll still expect payment with interest. Honestly, the only predator here was Visa. 34. A man once bought an entire set of medieval armor on his credit card. Not for reenactments, not for history, just because he thought it looked cool. Imagine paying 18% APR to dress like a knight in shining debt. He didn't even own a horse, just a Hyundai. At that point, your only joust is with the debt collector. And trust me, they've got sharper lances. 35. A man once used his credit card to buy a fleet of Segways, thinking he could rent them out for profit. Spoiler, no one wants to look like Paul Blart, mall cop on purpose. So now he's stuck with a garage full of dusty scooters and a balance that makes his life tilt forward at 19% APR. The saddest part? Even the repo guy refused to take them. That's when you know your investment is truly worthless. You've created the world's most expensive indoor obstacle course. 36. A woman once swiped her card to buy a gold-plated toilet seat. Not the whole toilet, just the seat. Because apparently, regular porcelain wasn't luxurious enough for her royal backside. Imagine paying interest on something you literally sit on, which also tarnishes every time you use it. The bank statement must have been art. Dining out, gas, groceries, and oh yes, one shiny reminder of how humanity deserves extinction. Honestly, this isn't even a toilet seat. It's a $10,000 participation trophy for financial stupidity. 37. Someone once financed a collection of vintage VHS tapes, all charged on plastic like they were bricks of gold. This wasn't rare Star Wars footage. It was things like Home Alone 3 and Air Bud, Golden Receiver, the kind of movies thrift stores can't even give away for free. And yet, here was a guy paying interest as if he'd invested in Bitcoin. Imagine explaining to your kids, "Sorry about college. I went all in on VHS." It's like hoarding rotary phones in the age of iPhones, except worse, because you can still make a call on a rotary phone. 38. A man once bought a taxidermy giraffe on his credit card, a full giraffe, standing in his living room like some tragic zoo exhibit, because nothing says financial security like staring at your long-necked interest payments while you eat ramen for dinner. Imagine trying to resell it. Lightly used giraffe, mostly decorative, may come with lingering smell of regret. This wasn't home decor. It was a $30,000 reminder that taxidermy is a luxury only billionaires and complete idiots should attempt. 39. A couple once used credit cards to fund a honeymoon to Antarctica. Flights, cruise, gear, everything. Because when you think romantic getaway, you obviously think frostbite. The best part? Their ship got stuck in ice and had to be rescued. Nothing says newlywed bliss like watching penguins waddle by while you argue about compound interest. Credit card companies should really list Arctic survival training under perks. Honestly, if your honeymoon involves polar bears and debt collectors, your marriage is already off to a chilling start. 40. Someone once charged a credit card for a literal bridge. A man in Europe thought it would be funny to buy an old decommissioned bridge at auction and swipe it like it was lunch at Applebee's. The bank approved it. I get flagged for a gas station in Ohio, but sure, here's a 200-ton piece of infrastructure. He couldn't move it, of course, so he basically bought a debt-shaped paperweight. A bridge to nowhere? No, this was a bridge to bankruptcy. 41. A woman once financed an entire wine cellar she couldn't even open. She lived in a rental. She filled her basement with racks, bottles, and climate control systems, all on credit. Then the landlord sold the house. She had to leave it all behind. Imagine making minimum payments on something now enjoyed by strangers who moved in after you. Oh, that's not your wine collection, ma'am. That's Visa's. It's less a hobby and more a long-term lease on humiliation. 42. A man once bought a rare comic book for $100,000 on a credit card. Superman #1, tucked carefully in plastic, financed entirely by his future misery. Except, plot twist, the comic was a fake. Congratulations, sir. You didn't buy Superman. You bought interest rates with a glossy cover. Imagine the repo man showing up not for your car, but for your comic book. That's not just nerd tragedy. It's financial kryptonite. 43. A woman once put $20,000 worth of designer candles on her credit card. Yes, candles. Wax sticks you light and forget about. She literally burned through her credit limit one wick at a time. Her house smelled amazing. Lavender, sandalwood, bankruptcy. But her bank account smelled like scorched earth. Imagine the satisfaction of a $400 candle burning down in 3 hours while the debt lingers for decades. That's not ambiance, that's arson with paperwork. 44. A man once used a credit card to buy a second-hand rocket engine. He found it at an auction and thought, this will impress people. What it impressed was his credit card company, who happily slapped 22% interest on his attempt at amateur NASA cosplay. He couldn't even use it, just displayed it in his garage like a giant reminder that physics is hard and debt is eternal. At least when his finances exploded, he had a fitting centerpiece. 45. Someone once bought a plot of land on Mars with a credit card, not metaphorically, literally from a scam website selling Martian real estate. Imagine paying interest on a patch of red dirt you'll never see, on a planet where you can't even breathe. And yet, he framed the certificate proudly. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is laughing because even he wouldn't swipe for Mars until the Wi-Fi works. This isn't investing. This is peak human delusion. 46. A man once used his card to fund an attempt at building a backyard roller coaster. Lumber, steel, power tools, all charged. He spent tens of thousands creating the jankiest Six Flags knockoff you've ever seen. And then the city shut it down for being unsafe, which is bureaucrat speak for, you built a death trap with a visa. Now his yard looks like a scrapyard, and his bill looks like a horror movie. The only ride he's on now is the one to financial ruin. 47. A woman once charged her card for a pet cloning service. Yes, she swiped tens of thousands to resurrect Fluffy the cat. Except the clone looked nothing like the original. Imagine explaining to Visa that you're not bankrupt because of medical bills, but because of an off-brand cat. The debt collectors must have loved that one. Ma'am, we don't care if Fluffy 2.0 has the wrong eye color. We just want the money. Honestly, the real clone was the duplicate monthly bill. 48. A man once bought a personal jetpack on his credit card because walking was just too affordable. He never learned how to fly it properly, so it sat in his garage like a $50,000 mosquito. Imagine paying $800 a month for something you can't even use without also buying life insurance. Credit card companies don't mind. You can't crash their profits. It's not a jetpack. It's a down payment on bankruptcy with wings. 49. Someone once used a credit card to buy the naming rights to a cockroach. A zoo was running a Valentine's Day gimmick. Name a roach after your ex. Most people spent $25. One guy spent thousands, buying out entire colonies so he could rename them all. Visa approved it. Imagine explaining that to your kids. Sorry, no college fund, But your inheritance is 1,000 bugs named Jessica. This isn't financial therapy. It's entomological madness with late fees. 50. A man once bought a full-scale replica of the Batmobile with a credit card, not a toy, the actual car. He couldn't drive it anywhere, of course, because it wasn't street legal. So it just sat in his driveway, confusing the neighbors while debt collectors circled like Gotham's villains. Batman fights crime. This guy fought compound interest and lost. Honestly, it's poetic. A fake hero, bought with fake money, trapped in very real debt. 51. And finally, the crown jewel. A man once bought $250,000 worth of scratch-off lottery tickets on his credit card and won nothing. Zero, zilch. He literally financed hope, and hope declined. That's the financial equivalent of setting your wallet on fire and roasting marshmallows over it. Imagine owing $250,000 because you believed luck would finally show up after the 800th losing ticket. It didn't. The only jackpot he hit was becoming the undisputed champion of financial stupidity. Ladies and gentlemen, we've officially found the dumbest purchase in human history. Mic drop. And there you have it. Proof that humanity can weaponize plastic into the most expensive comedy show on Earth. I can't decide if these people are pioneers of stupidity or martyrs for Visa, so I'll let you vote. Which one deserves financial jail time? Drop your pick in the comments. Throw a like if your wallet feels safer now and subscribe, because trust me, the stupidity gets way worse from here.